Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Konich-Yeehaw podcast. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And on today's episode, we wanted to talk about anime pre-2000s.
Right, so what would be considered retro anime?
Retro anime. 90s, 80s, a little bit of 70s, right? Yeah. So, Jared, what are some of the things that make it different?
So, I think the real, elephant in the room is going to be the quality of it.
Of course.
So, obviously now we have very pretty looking anime, very sharp with voice acting.
in good studios.
Good studios, animation, things like that.
Yes.
And so, one big part of older anime that you can tell... one big part about older anime, especially the older it gets, the more it's like this, is just still frames.
Right.
So frames where either nothing is happening and it's just panning over, or it's just someone talking, and just their mouth is moving.
Mm-hmm.
Still frames like that. And it's all because of one person.
Yes.
I'm
pretty sure he's considered the father of modern anime, isn't
yes,
he?
Yes. Osamu Tezuka. Yes. He, with Astro Boy... So anime movies and things like that had been a thing already.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at them, the animation's not bad.
Right.
But it hadn't become a weekly show yet.
Mm-hmm.
Anything like that. And so with Astro Boy, Osamu Tezuka was hey, I can show you how to make this really profitable for a little money. You don't have to pay me very much for it, and I can make it, weekly. And he did a thing called limited animation.
Right.
To where it was very much still images and mouths moving,
mm-hmm.
things like that. Very, it's called limited animation.
Yes. Where things, for example, if maybe you were flying, you mm-hmm. would just kind of move some paper across, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is really animated. It's kind of an optical illusion.
Right.
To show it being animated. Very, very traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you still see that.
Yeah.
Today, with shows that are the characters aren't moving, but they're talking, mm-hmm. and they're not really moving very much. They're just standing still.
Right. Yes. And this continues pretty late into the 90s.
I'd say even still today.
And continue. Yes, it does continue. It's easier. You know what I mean? I think a lot, and I'm jumping a little bit over mm-hmm. the gun just a little bit, but I think of Neon Genesis, right?
Right.
Anytime his father is talking,
yes,
his hands are over his mouth, so you don't have to animate his mouth moving, right?
Yeah.
But stuff like that still happens.
Right, literally just a still image with voice acting.
Yeah.
Anything. It also has to deal with budget.
Yes, of course.
How much time and budget
mm-hmm.
and things like that.
How many frames you can actually afford to make.
Yeah.
Or different frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay, there was this interview that I remember. I, for the life of me, cannot remember what show it was. But basically, so the show has a lot of bathroom scenes or shower or bathhouse mm-hmm. scenes.
Mm-hmm. And
someone asked them, they asked the director, they were why are there so many scenes with characters naked with the what's it called, with the steam covering them up? And he was well, we really didn't have much of a budget, so it was cheaper mm-hmm. to do scenes like that,
right? Yeah,
where it's just a bunch of steam.
Yeah, you don't have to animate clothes moving or
right.
Outfit changes or mm-hmm. things like that. Yeah.
Right. On the flip side of that, there are still some really beautiful animation or anime out there from older the 80s, basically anything Studio Ghibli.
Of course, yeah.
My
budget.
neighbor. Yeah.
There's a lot of budget there because it's a movie.
All comes down to time and budget. They don't have to. Their deadlines aren't the same as
mm-hmm.
a weekly show.
Mm-hmm.
Movies look really nice.
Movies look really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. My neighbor Totoro.
Mm-hmm.
looks great.
Right.
Grave of the Fireflies,
Looks
fantastic.
great. Kiki's still looks great.
Kiki's Delivery Food. These are shows that still stand up.
Yeah.
And, like, they're still made, like, over 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, yeah. Another thing is reusing animation. So you'll see this a lot in old shows.
Mm-hmm.
One that, like, pops up into my mind is with Gundam, the original Gundam.
Mm-hmm.
Came out in 79. And every time the main characters, Amuro and Char, or like main character, main antagonist, every time they fight, it's the exact same scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like they reuse the animation for every time they fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, you know, cheaper that way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Gets the same process. We watched a couple shows to like really set in, like, or we watched the first episode of a couple shows to really get the idea of like some decades.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the shows we watched was Ranma,
mm-hmm.
or Ranma 1/2, and there's a scene near the end where Ranma's dad throws him into the pond.
Right.
And they use the same animation for, like, right after each other,
mm-hmm.
for Ranma's dad throwing him into the pond.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's just a gag. I mean,
right.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So there's some also, like, over the years, there's been genre differences as well.
Yes.
So, like, the older, older shows, for the most part, are more likely to be, like, set in the future than they are now.
Right, like, kind of space.
Yeah, sci-fi. In any way.
Yeah.
So, like, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a space opera.
Mm-hmm.
Gundam, Macross, all these different shows that are, like, space-oriented shows. But that's kind of like... That's just kind of how it was, though, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of sci-fi, right? Yeah. I think it was... I think people were really excited about technology.
Yeah.
And they were really excited about what it could do. And there was a lot of imagination that was just happening, you know? Like, they were imagining... at one point we're going to be flying spaceships and flying big robots, and it'll be easy, it'll be normal, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's. I think one of the most interesting things is that so there was slice of life, like there was.
Yeah.
But it always had some sort of fantasy twist on it.
Yeah.
So like Ranma had the curse.
Yeah, the curse.
Ursa Yatsura, she was an alien. Shows like, it wasn't just like we're in high school.
Yeah.
Like what is really popular now.
Yes.
Like one of the most popular shows last year was Comey, or Comey Doesn't Communicate.
Yeah.
And that's just a regular show, like regular life.
Right.
Like, there's no, like, fantasy twist to it. She's not cursed to not be able to speak. Mm-hmm. She's just shy. Like, I feel like if that show came out, like, in, like, the 80s, she would have been cursed.
It would have been a curse.
She would have been a curse. Yeah. But, yeah, it's so weird. Mm-hmm. Or it's really interesting. And now another thing that's also popular right now is, like, fantasy. Mm-hmm. So, like, they'll be sent to another world that's in, like, medieval times.
Okay, yeah, like an isekai. Yeah, isekais are really big.
But, yeah. So, meaning specifically, isekais take place in these medieval times, though.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think that was as big a thing. Like, obviously, there's, like, Rose of Versailles, but that's, like, a period piece.
Yeah, but there are less of those. What you're saying is that they don't really do that.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, like, the shift that, like, 20 years ago, we were like, or, yeah, like, or I got, oh man, 20 years ago is
more than 20.
It's 2023. I mean, sorry, it's
2003.
2003. Yeah.
Yeah. So over 20 years ago.
Over 20 years ago, it was like the future.
We were looking at the future. We
Right.
were imagining,
Right.
a great adventure in
Right.
the future. Yeah.
But now it's all about the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wonder, like, if there's a reason. I mean, obviously, like Y2K, things like that.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's, like, a specific reason for, like, future not being as popular as it is anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but at the same time, I do think that there are enough anime still coming out that aren't necessarily present,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's a mixture. There are quite a few ones that take place in the past, though.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd
yeah.
say a majority of shows either take place in the present or the past, or like another world.
Another world.
Which is always in the past.
Well, not necessarily. I'm gonna say not necessarily.
Can you think of one that isn't?
That's like not in the past.
Yeah.
We'll Sword Art Online.
Yeah, but that's still medieval times. Like, the inside the game is still, like, medieval swords. Oh, wait, no, you're right. With the second season. They do the guns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're right.
I don't know. I find it hard to believe that there isn't an isekai that takes you to the future.
See, that's the thing.
Where there's, like, space and...
See, that's the thing, is that the reason why there's not is because a lot of isekai, the idea is I have the knowledge of someone from present time, and I'm applying that knowledge into
the past.
So, for example,
okay.
like a lot of isekai will have like video game aspects to it, like leveling up and things like that.
Okay.
And so they'll be like, "Oh, I play a lot of video games, so I understand how leveling up works,"
Okay.
or I'm like a banker in the modern time, so I understand how I can create a banking system in medieval times.
Okay.
Things like that.
Okay.
And so it doesn't really work the other way around because it's like, oh, I'm just totally lost. Like, I'm just incredibly inept at everything. Like, if you go to the future.
Okay.
There is one exception to that, which I can think of an isekai that they do go to the future, kind of. And that's Muv-Love. He is a regular school student that goes to this, like, time period, this alternate universe that has mechs and aliens. But then he goes all the way through it, dies, and then goes back in time in the other universe with mechs and aliens, so that he already has the knowledge of how to pilot mechs and be an ace pilot and things like that. So even going to the future, it does a roundabout way of going back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing that I feel like is like very present in like older shows is the censorship.
Yes. So as we mentioned, we watched the first episode of a couple of things that we kind of considered classics, I guess.
Yeah.
Like we knew that they're top-rated shows. And I was surprised at the nudity. Like, just because I hadn't seen that before. But these shows were not censored. They did not do any sort of, like, roundabout, have them turned a certain way to not see anything. Like, it was just out there.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of crazy to me. And I think it kind of cemented this, like, idea, and I know, like, we kind of talked about it a little bit, of, like, how so many people were like, oh, anime is for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And like the anime community for a while was like, no, it's not. For many reasons, right? For many reasons, like, no, it's not. But like it really never was.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, like that's just like it really was just like a Western idea of like animation equals for kids.
Yes, but it was also a Japanese thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exclusively like animes for kids. So
Yeah,
I was really interested in finding an answer for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is weird that like old anime like Ranma has like exposed breasts.
Yeah.
Like with nipples presenting.
Yeah.
And then like Dragon Ball, you see his little kid ding-a-ling.
Yes.
And so I looked it up, and basically in like the 70s, 80s, pre-90s,
Mm-hmm.
the attitude was just different.
Right.
So like basically because of anime pre-70s,
Mm-hmm.
those were all made for kids essentially.
Right. Okay.
And so the like adults and like producers, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, did just see anime as something for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so then like so things like Goku being naked and like Ranma having like her boobs exposed,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't seen as a sexual thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like for Goku, it was just seen as something like, oh yeah, like he's a kid, of course he's gonna be naked sometimes, like that's just
Yeah.
what kids do.
Yeah.
And for Ranma, it was seen as something funny.
Mm-hmm.
So like it wasn't seen as a sexualized thing as it kind of is in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of like, oh yeah, of course. Like, but it wasn't until like the 90s that, well, first anime started like pushing the envelope a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a you know, in the morning is for kids anime, in the evening is for adults anime. It was all just during prime time.
Right.
And so then like these more explicit shows were starting to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And this was also around the time of the 90s when like parents were really like, okay, I need to monitor what my kids are watching because what they're watching is affecting like how they act in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I also saw that there was like in the 90s there was a lot more like young violence against young people in Japan.
Okay. Yeah.
And so parents were, you know, that
Concerned.
like, yeah, concerned.
Yeah.
And so, and also companies started seeing that like, okay, shows are like anime's pretty profitable. You can make quite a bit of money off of anime. And so then they also started being like, okay, we need to
make it more marketable.
Yeah, we need to make it more marketable, start cutting down on some of the things. And so pre-90s, like buying anime like as like a bundle or something wasn't really as big a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so around the 90s, during this like scare of like, oh, what is the TV showing my kids,
Mm-hmm.
Things like TV or like DVD or like VHS
box sets
like what's it called, uncensored versions, and like OVAs,
Mm-hmm.
things that wouldn't be shown on TV, those started getting bigger, and then they realized, oh, we can profit off of this. So then they
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win because they
Yeah.
were like, okay, we're going to make our shows actually even more censored on TV, so that then they buy the director's cut version.
Right. Yeah.
Things like this. So basically, all it comes down to is that it was more commercialized.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
like, I don't know, we kind of became more I say we. So like the world, I say broadly,
Okay.
in a way became more conservative in that, or conservatives, less innocent.
Okay.
Things became less innocent. And so we started seeing things that maybe at the time they came out weren't seen as sexual, as sexual. And so then we felt more of a need to censor.
Right. So I want to speak a little bit in opposition of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because you cannot say with confidence that it just wasn't seen as sexual.
Oh yeah?
No, you can't, because in the first episode of Dragon Ball that we watched, Bulma, she is thinking sexually. Goku's not.
Yeah.
This is accurate. But when Bulma is like, "Oh, I know how to get him to do what I want," and she lifts up her skirt, and he's like, "What do I do with that?" Her intention is for it to be sexual.
Yeah.
So you can't say that there wasn't any knowledge of these shows having a sexual undertone.
Okay. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm going based off of what I read.
Yeah.
And basically what I was saying is that, like, I think it was more of a, like, kids aren't going to replicate this. Or, like, I don't know. You know what? I don't know.
I'm about to say, I don't know about that one.
Because, like, I'm not sure. Because, how it was worded was that, like, it was also saying that, like, it was just all, I don't know.
Because the thing I can understand, because once again we're going off of this episode of the first episode of Dragon Ball.
Right.
Going off of that, it is obvious that child Goku is innocent, is naive. He does not think sexually. His only knowledge of girls in general is just that he's supposed to be nice to them.
Right.
But like literally, like, he does lift up her skirt at one point, and then she's like, "Hey, don't do that."
Yeah.
And like maybe smacks him or something. I don't know. But like, the other point is that the whole joke of her like, "Oh, I know how to make him do what I want," and then her lifting up his skirt, and then he's being like, "I don't want to touch your dirty butt."
Yeah.
Like that's a joke. It's a joke on his innocence.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Like that's the punchline, is that he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't deny the fact that
right, it is like a sexual
It is a
thing.
sexual thing, and she thinks it's going to work.
Right.
Like, she's thinking that she can use her... I mean, these are kids. I feel weird saying it, but, like, she thinks she can use her body to, like, get something out of it.
Yeah, and, like, I was, like, a little confused about this as well. Because, like... Well, the thing is that, like, original Dragon Ball does have, like, sexual things in it. Like, later, I can't think of his name right now, but basically, like, who becomes Goku's master, I don't remember his name. It's like Roku, Master Roku, something like that.
Yeah.
Regardless, he has, like, a nudie mag. He has, like, nudie mags.
Yeah.
And, like, that show, like breasts.
Yeah.
That show boobs.
Yeah.
And so the thing that gets me is that, like, this was the only explanation that I could find. I, like, searched. I, like, looked. And basically it was just that, like, I guess, like...
I mean, times change. That's true.
Yeah, basically, I think another thing that was kind of a thing is that, like, since it was seen... Let's see, when did those come out again? 86? 86. So, yeah, it doesn't really add up with the timeline. But...
Like I said, it's accurate that times change. And, like, I mean, even Western media, like, it used to be super raunchy, and then the Hays Code happened, and then it was really censored.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of at this, like, in-between with the rating system, right, in America. Right. So, like, things change. Like, that's true.
Yeah.
And some things that, like, were okay then are not okay now. And,
right.
I mean, things are different, you know?
Yeah. I think it really came down to... I
think it came down to just how popular anime got. Once it was exported, you know, and the world saw it, and maybe called out some things,
right?
And we're like, "Hey, you can't do that," you know.
Right. But I mean, it's not like... Yeah, it's weird because shows like weren't censored and then they like were really censored.
Right. You were telling me that they were like really, really censored.
Yeah, so like whenever they came over to the West, one of the people or one of the companies that like produced, I think, or like distributed was 4Kids, and so they like super censored it. Like Sanji in One Piece, he smokes a cigarette in Japan, but for the 4Kids dub, he had a lollipop.
Right.
You know, they like super changed changed shows, and so like. And then that's also when like bath scenes with with steam and like beams of light, things like that. That's when like those were introduced, and so, but now we're going back up to like, okay, let's see how far we can get with this. Yeah. Because with shows like Interspecies Reviewers,
which goes really far,
that goes super far, that borders the line between hentai and
ecchi,
just ecchi, which is like perverted
already
shows.
Like really perverted.
Yeah, and so it's like, I think one thing that also like, or here's a good example, Devilman Crybaby. So, and this is a great example because I think this is one of the a change. So it all comes down to streaming services now because they don't have to necessarily worry about, or like some things don't necessarily have to worry about it being shown on TV and being censored for TV.
This is true, yeah.
So like shows like Devilman Crybaby, that was a Netflix show. Doesn't have to worry about the TV ratings since they can do it on their own thing.
Right.
And so now we have this dip and come back up
of
like censorship.
Of censorship, yes.
So I just wonder like, where's it gonna go? Yes.
Oh yes. I just wanted to kind of close in like the little journey that we went on when we were looking at these shows, watching the first episodes. Some of these we've actually seen more than one episode just because we've seen them before. But the oldest show that we watched was Devilman.
Yes, the original Devilman.
The original, which came out in 1972, which seems so crazy to me. 1972?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it is very, the animation's very limited.
Yeah.
The story was pretty straightforward, but it was wild to watch.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was wild to watch, but it was also really wild because for me, if you guys maybe remember, I don't know, the remake of Devilman is like my favorite anime.
Right.
But I hadn't seen any of the original. And after watching this first episode, it actually kind of made me appreciate the remake even more because of all of the things that Yuasa kept.
Right.
And it was really cool.
Yeah. I think something that's really interesting is that we're kind of around that time where old shows are being remade.
Yeah.
So like Devilman Crybaby, remake of Devilman.
Right.
Urusei Yatsura just got a Trigun.
Trigun is getting the remake,
got the remake right now. Or I guess a reboot is a better word.
Yeah.
Then so I'm just waiting. Okay. So the second show, or
it's actually the third.
No, yeah, the third show that we watched was, or I'll get to that later.
Okay,
I'll get to that later. I'm just saying, it needs a remake. It needs a remake. So we kind of want to watch the rest of the show.
Yes,
but yeah, I'll talk about that in a second.
So I'm just like saying chronologically in time of when these released. So Devilman in 1972. The next one that we watched was the original Dragon Ball, which was from 1986, and I think that that was really interesting to see too. And because I had never seen any real Dragon Ball content, like, ever. So I was actually pretty confused because it wasn't what I was expecting.
Original Dragon Ball is very different than the
I heard
rest
that it's
of
very different than the rest.
The show.
Yeah, I was, like, super confused. But it's interesting because with Dragon Ball, since we started in Dragon Ball, but from Dragon Ball to, so 86 to, I would say, like, 90's, like the year 1990. The characters look rounder.
Yeah.
They're, I don't want to say, like, thicker, but they're kind of thicker. If you go off of the fact that
80's characters?
Yeah, the 80's characters, they're thicker. They their proportions are, like, just thicker. If you compare them to, like, say, Sailor Moon of the 90's.
You're right, yeah.
Who are very much more Barbie looking, where they're long, skinny, thin. They look very different. So that's something that I noticed right away with Dragon Ball, and then the next one that we watched, which came out in 89, Ramen 1/2.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, and also part of this thickness is it does make them look shorter.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's here or there, right?
Yeah. They look more like people.
Yeah, they look more like people, other than in the face, where they have the really big forehead.
Okay.
And then the big eyes. That's like very anime.
You know what's one thing that is very funny? That is a very, like, older anime thing. The hair.
Yes.
So
the sideburns.
Yes, the sideburns, but specifically, like, the hair tufts, because if you think Goku, you think
the weird spine,
Devilman, or like whatever his human name is. I don't remember what his human name is.
Akira.
Yeah. Akira. You think Astro Boy. They all have that hair that you shouldn't see from the front.
Right.
Or, like, that you shouldn't see from the side.
Yes.
Like, it's only front view because it has it, like, going from one side to the other side. Like back and forth.
Yeah.
To where it doesn't make sense from a front view.
Yeah, and that's, it's somewhere in my notes. I'm not going to look it up, but I know that it's kind of officially, unofficially known as the Mickey Mouse syndrome, because Mickey Mouse, when he looks on the side, you can still see both of his ears.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he looks forward, his ears are still facing forward. But Astro Boy did that. The thing is that I don't know who did it first, Mickey Mouse or Astro Boy. I'm not sure. Okay? But, like, they are the two characters who kind of pioneered that way of drawing hair, I guess you could say. Or what would be hair. Yes. So, then with Ranma 1/2. Ranma 1/2. It's an A. Oopsies. With Ranma 1/2. It is great. And I know that it's a classic for many reasons. A lot of people love it. Essentially, the story is father and son go on this training to China. And they go training at the Forbidden Hot Springs, and they don't listen to the tour guide because he speaks Chinese, and, like, he doesn't really. They don't understand each other. Right.
It's really interesting because the subtitles are in broken English.
Yes, the subtitles are broken Japanese, but, like, they're broken. So they go to train at this Forbidden Hot Spring. They can't understand the tour guide. They fall into the springs and they get cursed. So the father falls into the spring of the drowned panda. So he turns into a panda. And then the son falls into the spring of the drowned girl. So he turns into a girl. So their predicament is that when they touch cold water, they turn into either girl or panda. And then when they touch hot water, they turn back. So into father and son. Anyway, the father is trying to marry his son off to one of 3 bachelorettes. Yeah. Who are all sisters.
And I'm pretty sure they're all... Well, okay. So I think part of the plot is that it's like...
It's a dojo.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Both of them are dojos.
Yes. So they want to continue their fighting styles. They want to continue their dojos, their work. Have their legacy secured, essentially. So obviously antics ensue. They show up Rama shows up as a girl, so then they're really confused as to why would they want to marry their daughters to a girl, and then they take a bath and now they're a boy, and like, you know,
I think
the antics.
I think probably one of my favorite things about it is that, so of the three girls, one of them is introduced by being like, I hate boys.
Yes, I hate boys.
And then later, whenever it's revealed that Ranma changes into a boy and a girl, the other two sisters are like, hey, you should marry Ranma because you like girls.
Yeah, because you like boys. It's that you hate boys.
It's that you hate boys, and he's half girl,
and he's half girl, so why not? But it looks very funny.
Yeah.
Obviously there are censor things again. You see exposed nipples, both Rama's and the other girls. I forgot her name. Sorry.
Yeah,
but like they are nude, and so that wouldn't fly like today.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really fun to see a remake.
I would love to see a remake.
It'd be so fun to see a remake, and it especially goes in vein with Ursa Yatsura, because one thing had to happen. One thing had to happen in Ranma for us to realize that it was the same creator as Ursa, and it's that whenever the characters fall, their hands do like the I love you thing. They fall and their hands do that. So Ranma fell and did that, and we were like that's the person who made
that's
Ursa.
Rumiko Takahashi.
That's Rumiko Takahashi. We knew it was her. So I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I hope it happens. You know?
I really do too.
I do too, because I think if it got the same glow up that Ursa had, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
If it still looked 80s, but like just refreshed.
80s but HD.
Yes, 80s but HD. It would look great.
Yeah.
And then it's also worth mentioning that the movie Akira came out around this time as well, which we talked a little bit about Akira in our
movie episode
and our mech episode. We've talked about it in a few different places, just in how influential it was in sci-fi.
It's iconic, it's old, but looks fantastic.
It looks fantastic. Even I was surprised, because I was expecting it to not look very great whenever I first watched it, and I was very impressed. So moving on though, we have a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
In like the early 90s, we just didn't find too many things that we really liked, kind of.
I just looked up a list and was like,
these are the ones that are the most popular. And so not to diss on anything that came out in the early 90s. But so 95, we have Neon Genesis and the movie Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Both very iconic works that also were just very influential in the trajectory of anime.
And
how it moved forward. Neon Genesis is something that we've seen all the way through. I've seen one movie. I've seen
the Rebuild movies.
I watched the end of Evangelion. And so I remember it was actually pretty funny because it was my sibling that brought this up. Something that Neon Genesis does that not many other animes did at the time or do now. But it was this episode 2. So episode 1 happens and it's chaotic, right? Because Shinji is being forced into the suit and it's traumatic for him and whatever. And then in the second episode, it opens with him in a hospital bed, right? You know, and something that my sibling pointed out is that whenever he wakes up in the hospital bed and he's like kind of trying to remember what happened, or like essentially like he's having a flashback, right?
Yeah.
But he has a flashback in a very realistic way where all of the scenes are so choppy and so fast. So like you don't have to have the flashback episode or the recap episode. Like they just flashed images and were like, what? He was like, wow, I can't believe that happened. And then it flashed everything that happened really fast. Which is just something that I haven't really seen anywhere else.
Yeah.
Where that's like actually how like when somebody has gone through something where they're like high adrenaline and maybe not all the way there, like that's how they remember it. It's just a bunch of flashes. So I thought that was very cool.
I was saying that Evangelion was definitely one of those shows that pushed the envelope with censorship. Because there's like some pretty sexual stuff in there. And so it was definitely one of the shows that that pushed the parents being like, what is my kid watching on TV?
Yes. Yes, because it's not only is it sexual, it's also violent. I mean, it gets pretty violent. And then with Ghost in the Shell, once again, I would not say that Ghost in the Shell was made for a child audience.
Definitely not. But it's a movie, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, anyway, it's a movie, so it doesn't count. A lot more mature movies. Mature movies were way more common than child movies, or movies for children. But Ghost in the Shell definitely kind of cemented the cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Yes. It definitely, like... I mean, it took after... No, wait, I'm about to say it backwards. The Matrix took after it.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that just shows, like, how it, kind of invented it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then... Oh, wait, I actually forgot... Initial D.
Yeah.
When did Initial D come out? I forgot what year.
Shoot. I don't have my phone. Like 98 or something
98 or something? Okay. I just wanted to mention Initial D. We watched the first episode.
Yeah.
And I am sorry if you are an Initial D fan out there. I absolutely hated it.
You did?
It was so bad. It's awful. It looks terrible.
It does look bad.
It looks so bad.
But you know what? I give them innovation for using CG in the in the 90s.
In the 90s, even though it looks terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Like, I feel so bad saying that. It just... Like, the art, the character design, it's just terrible. It's so bad. It's so bad. Sorry if you can hear our dog crying. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's not exactly the best looking show.
No.
They made...
And I think the plot is for a very specific audience, and that audience is just not me.
Yeah, that's fair. I've almost finished the show. I got into, like... There's, like, 6 seasons, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to, like, the 5th season... And I was watching it. It's a real shame because they didn't finish dubbing the show.
Oh. Probably because it looks like shit.
It's super popular though.
I know it's so popular. I know.
But I mean, name one other car racing show. Like.
I don't know a show. I was gonna say Redline. That's a movie.
Yeah, but like there is not really a show like it, which. Yeah. Makes it unique in itself.
Yeah, I know.
Even if it doesn't look very good.
It doesn't. It looks very 90s.
It does look very 90s.
Yeah. That's derogatory, though.
Yeah. I don't know when the manga came out, though.
Yeah.
But yeah. You know what, though? Mm-hmm. It may look bad, but you know what scenes look very good and very fluid? Whenever they're in the car. So, like... changing gears.
Yes,
and like
I did notice that.
His feet.
Yes,
that's very solid.
That's very solid. It was kind of jarring because it's the only fluid thing that happens in the anime.
Yeah.
Other than the CG parts, obviously. Okay, so then lastly we have 97, which a lot of things came out in 97. Mm-hmm. Like me, I'm just kidding. No, a lot of things happened in 97. There are honestly too many to really even mention. So just like kind of the big ones. Well, we have Utena.
Yeah.
A revolutionary girl.
You know what?
Utena.
I swore Utena came out in like 87.
It definitely
I swore that it did.
Looks older than it is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and you could call it a stylistic thing. It doesn't look bad by any means.
I think the manga's old.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad by any means, but it does look older than it is.
Yeah. Which Utena does use the reused animation.
It sure does.
Like
every episode.
Every fucking fight scene in every episode.
Yeah, well, it's like
walking up animation.
It's a magical girl transformation.
It is. It's just long.
Yeah. But Utena It was weird. I'm sorry. But
it is. We never finished it.
We almost did though.
Yeah, we only have like 3 episodes.
Yeah, I know. We only have 3 episodes left. It's really good. If you have the capacity to follow the plot.
Yeah.
And I think that looking at Utna, and I'm forgetting who made Utna.
I don't remember either.
But it's the same person who did Sarazanmai.
Yeah.
And I think watching that progression of doing Utna and then years later doing Sarazanmai, and it just all of the similarities, all the parallels that they have to each other. I don't know, there's something magical about that. Yeah. There really is, because one of the reasons why I like Sarazanmai so much is because it isn't something that's made anymore. And I feel like something like Utna also isn't really made anymore.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's like really special.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then the other one we wrote down was Trigun.
Trigun, yeah.
Yes, which is also a very solid show from the 90s. Very good. We might have to do a whole episode comparing and contrasting and lamenting and groaning and moaning about the original versus the reboot, remake, whatever. Because we have a lot of thoughts about it. You'll hear about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely at least talk about it some on our recap.
Yes.
Our season recap.
But the original is very good.
Yeah.
The original is
very good.
Very good. And I mean, that's kind of where we ended it. Obviously, things were still coming out, like many more big things came out all the way up until the year 2000.
Yeah.
It feels like, I think that 95 to like those 5 years, a lot of good stuff came out.
Yeah, it did.
A lot of good stuff came out. But that is all that we have, I think.
Anime's changed a lot.
Yeah, it has.
It's changed quite a bit for the
styles,
better or worse.
The styles, the genres, the stories.
I talked about this in our Has Anime Peaked episode.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I think per the amount of shows that were coming out, I think more iconic shows came out, like, between, like, the 70s and 80s. I mean, sorry, the 70s and 90s, than the 2000s to 2020s.
To now. Yeah.
I think more shows that will last the test of time, or like that have been influential. I could be totally wrong about this. There could have been shows that came out in like the 2000s that have super influence. There probably is, honestly.
In the 2000s, in the 2000s there
tons
is
of influence. Yeah,
there's a lot. Early 2000s definitely had another wave of like kind of a because I mean the thing is that I know I mentioned like in the 80s how everything was kind of chubbier.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s to some early 2000s, everything was really long and skinny.
Yeah, you're right.
And then I want to say that as we went on, though, we kind of found this happy medium.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agree.
Like, where they weren't, like, ridiculously long and skinny, but they were still skinny.
Right.
Like, they're still skinny.
We have, like, the anime twink body.
Yeah.
Of the 2000s that have kind of died out.
Yeah, but it's thicker than the anime twink body of the 90s.
Yes.
But like I said, like it's a lot of fluctuation is happening.
Yeah.
With art style. So.
But yeah, I'm curious to see where anime goes in 10 years.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely a ton of anime that come out now. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of hard to tell what's going to be big. And like what's going to actually... Like
down the line. Yeah. How it's going to hold up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, because... I don't remember half the fucking shows that I watched the past 2 years.
This is accurate.
We watch so much
We do our year review, and then it's kind of like...
The shows that we can actually remember.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's it for today.
Yes, I think that's it for today. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Konich-Yeehaw. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And thank you so much for listening. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Yeehaw, or go yeehaw.